The DJI Osmo Mobile is a fantastic addition to smartphone filmmaking. Affiliate link in the video description. Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is the Mundane Matt channel, and it's been almost 3 years since the lie of hands up, don't shoot involving Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, created Black Lives Matter, because that's where it began. It began during that moment of civil unrest when the public was trying to understand why an 18-year-old young black man was shot and killed by a white police officer in Ferguson, Missouri. As we learned throughout the years, it was very much justified. It was Darren Wilson defending himself from Michael Brown attacking him. But that didn't stop people like DeRay McKesson here from starting Black Lives Matter and using it as a way to get himself a pretty big salary as being a social activist. But over the course of the past couple of years, we've seen what Black Lives Matter has turned into. They've turned into what can only be described as a borderline domestic terrorist organization. And those are strong words, and I do not say them lightly. Look at the events of BLM Toronto, what they do up there. Every time you have a protest where Black Lives Matter comes out in force and they're chanting, what do we want? Dead cops when we want them now, through the streets of New York City. Or you've got situations in Milwaukee where white people are being drugged through the street and beaten, or white people driving cars are being targeted by Black Lives Matter protesters. I mean, these are things that have happened, right? These are things that have happened as a result of this organization being created. But no one wants to call them what they are, which, like I said, borderline domestic terrorists. And I'm not saying that they don't have legitimate grievances in some cases, absolutely. But what the organization has done has never challenged the extreme of their ilk at all, and instead chosen to just ignore them while CVS's burn, while Little Caesars burn, while shops are being looted and destroyed. They never say a word. But now they're gonna maybe have to. And again, all roads have kind of been pointing to this for a while. And so a wounded police officer is suing DeRay McKesson and Black Lives Matter for inciting violence. A Baton Rouge police officer who was wounded during a spat of racial unrest is suing Black Lives Matter and some of its leadership for inciting violence that led to his injuries. Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's Deputy Nicholas Tullier isn't named in the suit according to the Associated Press, but a description of the plaintiff in the first several paragraphs of the filing seemed to match Tullier's description. Tullier, if I'm saying that wrong, I apologize, was seriously injured, and one of his colleagues was killed when a gunman ambushed officers in East Baton Rouge in the summer of 2016. That, of course, came after the Dallas shooting and the Alton Sterling incident in Baton Rouge also last summer. Authorities later said that the gunman, a black military veteran, was lying in wait for law enforcement and acted in retaliation for several police shootings of black men that took place earlier in the year. Now, that same officer claims that McKesson, who was arrested during a protest in East Baton Rouge just before the shooting, was one of the several people inciting violence against police officers, and is therefore at least partially responsible for the attack, saying, incitement to violence is one of the few categories of speech the Supreme Court has determined not to be protected under the First Amendment, but the concept requires a plaintiff to connect the individual speech directly to an ensuing event. Now, this is where it does get crazy, because I know that DeRay was there in East Baton Rouge. I know that DeRay was arrested while he was wearing his hashtag Stay Woke shirt. It was a photo op. The entire thing was a photo op. He got himself arrested in order to stage a photo like that. That's been my opinion since I saw it. It just looks too perfectly designed to be anything but a photo op to further guide him down the path of prominence and, well, profitability. But, you know, I've never heard him specifically say these things that would incite violence. He's always been very good not to do that. But you've had people like Michael Brown's stepfather that was saying burn the streets down. You've had people, I forget, I think it was in Milwaukee when there was a shooting. There was the sister saying, like, go and burn down, or no, it was in Minnesota. There was a riot. They're like, oh, go and burn down suburbs, go burn white people shit. Like, that was cut out, edited out of CNN. CNN plays a big part in how this shit plays out. They really kind of push these narratives. But DeRay himself, I haven't heard say anything. But I can see why he's being included. It's going to kind of force DeRay to own up possibly to his own actions in regards to BLM. It's also not the first time that McKesson has been sued for inciting violence. The same legal team representing the East Baton Rouge officer filed a lawsuit against McKesson last March on behalf of a different Baton Rouge cop who was injured during a BLM protest. A federal judge is already handling the appeal from that case, deciding whether the cop even has a standing to sue McKesson, since Black Lives Matter doesn't technically have a centralized organizational system, and McKesson isn't, at least officially, a representative of the movement. No, but McKesson's been involved. He backed away a while back. To go focus on other stuff, like, you know, being the only person out there who wears a blue vest to the Press Correspondence Center. But the point is, cops starting to sue these movements, and the people that lead these movements or the prominent figures within them are going to probably happen more. And granted, the same legal team is involved in all this, so you can see where they're pushing it. Kind of like Benjamin Crump was the attorney that represented Trayvon Martin's parents, and then Michael Brown's parents, and then he's always popped up in these different cases, these high-profile cases. He tends to show up and become the attorney representing the family. It's a job for a lot of these kind of people that they go and they find these situations and they find ways to profit off of them. I honestly look at DeRay McKesson at this point as being no better than Benjamin Crump. I mean, I was called an ambulance chaser yesterday, and it's a title that is not 100% without merit. I mean, I look for these kind of stories. It's very similar to what DeRay McKesson and Benjamin Crump do. This is what people in our position do. But I think there's a certain level of responsibility that you have as a person involved in these situations to call for peace, to call for understanding, to call for rationality. And we don't see that with Black Lives Matter. Now, it's entirely possible that the idea of the core concept of BLM was destroyed, and that's one of the reasons why DeRay McKesson left. I think Netta was another one. I don't know her real name, but like her Twitter handles that. She was another original leader, and they left. And no, you don't have any of the original leadership anymore. It's now broken down, I think, to mostly chapter by, like, the different chapters in different cities. But their names are still attached as a creation of this, and they've never come out and denounced anything that I've seen. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, let me know, and I'll gladly take a look at it and reevaluate my opinion. But I look at something like this and I think to myself, this is something that was bound to happen. When you start getting these organized movements that over the course of 3 years have demolished neighborhoods, they've burned businesses, they've looted businesses, they've burned cars, they do all of these things. They target white people specifically that have nothing to do with this situation, and they're never held to account. Someone is going to eventually be held to account. And it just happens in this case to be DeRay, because DeRay is the most prominent member, at least was the most prominent member. Now, will they be able to sue him? Probably not. Probably not, but it's definitely going to open the door for more of these kind of lawsuits. And the only way for people like DeRay and Netta and others who are kind of organizers in this particular situation, they have to come out and start denouncing these particular acts when these protests that turn into riots break out. And they don't, and they're silent. And their silence can be viewed as being complicit. And I'm sure they're not complicit. I don't believe that they're complicit, but it's viewed that way in the public spectrum. So if they're not careful, they're going to find themselves in more situations like this, which is just annoying. But it's better to be safe than be sorry. And if you want actual peace and actual change, then, you know, if you're going to sit there and attack all cops, or at least the bad cops for being bad, then you have to also sit there and decry your supporters that are also doing horrible things in order to not align yourself with them, because that's when things get tricky when you don't do that. At least that's what Twitter keeps telling me constantly. Now, granted, look, to be fair, DeRay is an individual. All right, he is an individual. He has his own motivations, his own reasons for stuff, his own desires, and I get that. All right, and he is only responsible for him. My point is saying that they're going to have to start denouncing these acts is because there's going to be enough pressure on them to where every time something like this happens, they're going to be the ones blamed for it, even though they had nothing to do with it. And trust me, as a person who's been around since Gamergate, I fully understand that sentiment, and it sucks. But at the same time, when you don't speak out against these issues and they're allowed to foster the way they're allowed to foster, you kind of find yourself in those situations. It's unfortunate, but You know, it's better to just sit there and just denounce all violence as it happen before it happens, and keep distancing yourself from it. But that is part of the I guess the cost of being involved in these particular situations. Anyway, what do you guys think about this? Let me know in the comments below. Do you think that DeRay will be sued? Do you think he should be sued? Do you think Black Lives Matter as a whole can possibly be sued? Or is it just gonna, you know, are there individuals that can be, I guess you could say, targeted for a lawsuit in order to, you know, to handle these situations that do incite violence? These are things I'm curious about. Go ahead and let me know in the comments below. My name is, of course, Matt Jarbo. This is the Mundane Matt channel. I'll talk to you guys later. Have yourself a great day, and peace out.